Hello, I'm so glad you're here today. We are going on to the next lesson of the parenting class that I'm doing. And my name is Mary, and I'm from Mary's Home Sweet Home Creations. And I am going to be covering a new topic today that will help give you some new skills on how to encourage your children's self-esteem. And the last video that we did in this series was the behavior management and what punishment, discipline, rewards. We covered a little bit on timeout, and we ended with the rules of the family and how you were going to try and come up with your rules between you and whoever else watches the children, and giving the children some input into those rules. And everyone comes together and brainstorms the rules, and so then everyone knows what to expect. They know what the rules are. They know what the consequences are, what the punishment will be if the rules are broken. And then each adult will be able to follow through with those, and the children will know what's going on. So hopefully you were able to sit down and do that. And in this session, we're going to be talking about personal power and what that means. What is positive personal power? What is negative personal power? How people use that, adults and children, and the steps that we need to take to help ourselves and our children have the positive personal power. And then the next part after that, we're going to be talking about praising. So we'll see how far we get through this session, if we get through all of it. Okay, so personal power has to do with the emotional. I'm going to read the definition for you. Personal power is the emotional capability we have to influence conditions in our lives which help us to meet our needs. Okay, so this is talking about our personal power. Personal power is not how physically strong we are, but how emotionally strong we are. We can use our personal power in a positive or a negative way, and a destructive way. Okay, so once we understand what personal power is, and that it can be a positive or a negative way in which we use it, we can be more aware of what we're doing. Sometimes we do things not really being aware of what we're doing, and then we teach that to our children by example, and they watch us and they learn everything from us and what we're doing. Okay, so in our own personal power as adults, we grew up learning a certain thing from our parents or whoever raised us, our grandparents, our foster parents. There are many combinations of families that could have been raising us growing up. Maybe even an aunt. I know some aunts that are raising their nieces and nephews. So let's give you the sense. Okay, this is to develop a sense of personal power in ourselves. Okay, here's some steps for that. You take ownership of your feelings. Okay, that is 1. 2, take responsibility for your own behavior. Okay, so when we have feelings, we take ownership of that. We know that we're angry, we're happy, we're sad. Okay, we take ownership for that. We take responsibility for our behavior. So when we're getting angry and we are not following our own discipline plan, we have to take responsibility for that. Okay, that's just an example. So we're responsible for our behavior. And 3, make decisions to problems that will increase your sense of self-worth. Okay, so we're trying to build our self-worth and our in how we problem solve. So we have to make those decisions that are going to make us feel good about ourselves. So if we're making bad decisions, we're not going to feel that self-worth. We're going to be feeling worthless. Okay, number 4, communicate using I statements. And you probably have heard this before because it's a super common thing now that we have the internet. And if you've ever been to a therapist or you have been to a parenting class before, communications class, telling people to use I statements is a very common thing. So really it's just about being aware of how you say something. So I am angry right now. I need to take some time out. Okay? Or I am not happy with the way that you are talking to me right now. I would like you to stop disrespecting me in that way. So when you are talking about yourself, you want to use the I statement. Now, when I just said, I don't like the way you are talking to me, I would like you to stop disrespecting me. So it depends on who you're talking to, adult or child. If you're talking to another adult who does not take responsibility for their behavior or doesn't take responsibility or doesn't take ownership of their feelings, they're not going to be able to communicate with you on that same level. So hopefully eventually, once you learn to communicate that way with your children and with other people in your life, they will take that example and start communicating to you in that way. Okay. Praising yourself for being and doing. So you want to set an example for your children by praising yourself for just being. I love the way that I laugh and enjoy life. Or I love the way that I can skip down the street. That's a doing. I love the way that I make dinner for my family every night. That's another doing. So for doing and for being, I love that I am your mommy. I love that I am married to your daddy. I mean, there are many ways you can express these things, but when you do these type of statements around your children, they start to learn to communicate that way also. And it builds, not only does it make you have self-worth, but it makes them have self-worth. So that is what we're trying to teach here. Follow through with commitments. Okay, so if you committed to sit down and read stories to your child at 3 o'clock and you don't keep that commitment, you say, oh, mommy would have done that, but she just can't right now because something else came up, I have to go peel potatoes because now I have more people coming to dinner, so I need to get started. So that child will feel like you did not keep your commitment to them to read them a story. So with your children, it is important to keep your commitment because you want them to keep their commitments too. As they grow up, they're watching you for example. So instead of just saying, I cannot because I have this or that, you could say, I don't have time to read a lot of stories, but let's find one short story and let's read it together. Because it's not going to take that much time for you, and you'll still have followed through with your commitment. Okay? If you said, same thing with anyone else in your life, if you said to your husband or your boyfriend, I will be home tonight at 6 o'clock so we can go out on our date. And then 6 o'clock comes around and you call and say, I am not going to be there at 6 o'clock because I decided to stay a little bit later at my girlfriend's house because we are having such a good time together. So, not that that's a bad thing, but for that other person who's made a commitment to you and is waiting for you to show up at 6 o'clock, that would be a commitment that you didn't keep. Okay, so it's pretty important in all our relationships that we keep our commitment as best we can. We're not going to be perfect at it, but in some relationships that tends to be a norm, a regular thing, that someone's not keeping their commitments. And the children are watching that. And then your children stop keeping their commitment because they're following your example. Okay, be aware of the needs and feelings of others. So if I'm aware of your needs, those needs that I talked about in my other video, we're aware of the needs of the child to need to be in bed at a certain time to get their sleep. That's a physical need. Then we are going to do everything we can to make sure that that happens, right? And if we don't, and that child is over the top, tired, and they tend to get more energy for some reason, and they're kind of like these kitties I have right now. Right before bedtime, they're just going off the wall, jumping around, play, because they're over the top and they're afraid they're going to just go to sleep if they stopped, and they don't want to stop. So if we as parents have, taken them somewhere where they weren't able to get to bed on time, or we've allowed it to go on later and later, we have to be aware of that and understand their feelings and understand what's going on for them. They're actually tired, but they just don't want to stop. So for us to get angry about their behavior at that point, we have to take responsibility for our own behavior and not making sure that got done, that they went to bed on time, but also to understand their feelings, that they're tired and they might be whiny and they might be over the top. But if we're aware of that, we're not going to be so upset about it. We're going to just try our best to get them to bed as soon as we can. So those are important things that we need to be, another thing we need to be aware of, okay? Aware of their needs and aware of their feelings, okay? And that goes for other people in our lives too, okay? If you have a babysitter and you're coming home at midnight and you don't get home till 1 in the morning, that is not being aware of her needs and her feelings, because she may have to go to school the next day. She may be too tired to take her math test the next day. She may be too nice to tell you that you're going to owe her extra because you kept her there till 1 o'clock in the morning. So anyways, be aware of people's needs and their feelings. If you do need to stay out later and you call and say, is it okay, we're going to be here another hour later, then she can agree or not agree to that, instead of you just making that choice and disregarding her feelings. Okay? So all of these things, our kids watch us all through their life, what we do and how we behave, and are we being aware of other people's feelings and their needs, and are we reacting in a positive way? Okay? So that is for us, our sense of personal power, through taking ownership of our feelings, taking responsibility for our own behavior, making decisions to problems that will increase your sense of self-worth, communicate using the I statements, and praising yourself for being and doing, and follow through with commitments. Be aware of the needs and feelings of others. So all of that is going to make us use our personal power in a positive way. Okay, so for our children, it's a different set of steps for them that we are going to be responsible to teach to them. Okay. They learn by watching, right? And then the other things that we need to do as parents, to help them develop a sense of personal power in their lives. My animals are doing weird things right now. Okay, I had to do some pet management. So before we move on to the children's personal power steps, I wanted to cover this, the negative personal power, because most of it has to do with us as adults. Some people use personal power in a negative way. That is the things they do to get their needs met, but they're destructive. So it might be alcohol, drugs, dependency on these addictions, fighting, stealing, cheating, or hitting. Those are all ways people use their personal power in a negative way. People who use their personal power in a negative way generally feel bad about themselves. So if you think about that, most of those people who are actively doing these things are feeling bad about themselves. Being a recovered alcoholic for 37 years, I can tell you that that is definitely true. And even though it's been that long since I drank or did any other things, that those things don't go away. You know who you were and what you were, how your behavior was when you were actively in those addictions. So if you are actively involved in addiction now, you need to get some help for that. You need to be clean and sober. You need to be free of your addiction, whatever it is, and so you can be a better parent, so you can show a good, positive, personal power, using it in a positive way, not in the negative, because that is something that some of us grew up with and we carry with us until we grow up and learn all about how to change that. So if you know that about yourself or your spouse or even somebody else in your life who may be watching your children, you want to make sure that those things are taken care of so that you can all be healthy family, healthy parents, healthy children. That's what this is all about. And so personal power in a negative way can sometimes happen in a family. And the point of it all in having a positive spin on your personal power is that it helps build our self-concept and our self-esteem. And at the same time, it's teaching our children to have good self-concept and good self-esteem. Okay. For children, the first step in the children's personal power being used in a positive way is to treat children. If we treat the children with respect and dignity, so that doesn't mean that we don't have to call them on certain things they do, because we have rules, and we're also trying to teach them to be respectful. So this means that they need to respect us and we respect them. We treat them with dignity. We don't abuse or harm them. We do follow through with rules that they know what they are, and everyone has established them together and what the consequences are. The second one is praising your children for being and doing, like we were doing on the adults list. So when we're praising ourselves for being and doing, we're also going to be praising them as often as we can for being and doing. I would say, like for children, it's very easy for a parent who has empathy and loves their child to say, I love you just because you're my sweet little boy, or I just love it when you can show me how good you are at jumping over the rope, or I love the way that you sing your songs in the morning. I love the way that you look at me. I know how much I love you and how much you love me. You know, all of these things, either it's being or doing, are praising them. And we should praise them for their accomplishments, praise them and celebrate their accomplishments. When, children start getting into dance classes or doing sports or getting into some little competitions, even if it's a relay race, celebrating their accomplishments and praising them for their ability. Even if they don't win, you can still praise them for their efforts. Okay? All of those are important. And give your children opportunity for success. So if we know that they're maybe not really interested in gymnastics, but we force them to go anyways, and they're not succeeding, they don't like it, they're not looking like they're going to be successful in that it could just lower their self-esteem and self-concept. So putting them in a place where they can be successful would be like they're better at running than they are gymnastics. So we put them in a little track program, or they're better at playing basketball, and maybe there's a little activity at the community center for basketball. And so we look for their the things that they are good at and the things that they want to do, and that helps encourage them. and it helps them be successful, and that builds their self-concept and their self-esteem. So, and then encouraging your children to take the responsibility for their feelings, like we are showing them that we are doing. We want to do the same for them. And in saying, well, first of all, in order for them to tell you their feelings, we have to teach them what the feelings are. And in another video I did about some kids' art, we did feeling faces, which is one of the activities that we would be doing in a class setting, and drawing out different feelings and making the facial expressions on. I use paper plates because that's easy, and then you can put a stick on it or to make it like a face, and then they get to identify the feeling, what it looks like on someone's face, and then how to say, I'm feeling happy, or I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling excited, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling sad. So all of these things that we think are just natural, automatic things are not for kids. When they're little, we have to teach these things to them so they can express those feelings and be able to tell us how they're feeling, be able to tell other people how they're feeling, and just communicate better. Okay? And a lot of times when children have something going on with them at school or in sports or in other places that you're not there to see, being able to express those feelings is really important. And some children can't even tell you that because they don't know. They don't understand what's the difference between being angry and scared, because a lot of times you can have both those feelings, but you're not sure how to express it. So the more you practice that with your kids and you make it fun, the more they learn to say the words, understand what it is they're feeling, and be able to express it. Okay. You also want to provide your children with choices and consequences. So the choices and consequences would come into your discipline. So if you're using choices and consequences for your older child, because they know what timeout is and they've done it now, they're old enough they can make choices and then choose consequences if that's what they choose. So you want to make that available. So if you go to bed on time, then you're going to wake up and you're going to feel good in the morning. And we also can get our sticker on our rewards chart. Okay, so if they choose to do that, they're choosing to get rewarded down the line, but also feel better in the morning because they know when they go to sleep and get enough sleep, they feel better. But if they choose not to and they fight going to bed and they've sat in their room awake for 2 hours doing whatever and they didn't go to sleep on time, their consequences, they're going to be very tired when it's time to get up in the morning to go to school. They're also not going to get their sticker because mom and dad know you didn't go to sleep. So those are the consequences. And for older kids, that works really well because it's a consequence that matters to them. Okay. And listen and talk to your children. So it's really important that we do that all through their life, because when they're trying to tell you something, it's important to them. and they want to know that it's important to you. So it's good to stop and listen to your kids as much as you can, because they're trying to tell you something. And they also want you to talk to them. You know, they want to know that you care about what's going on in their life, that you want to know how was it when you went to play at Joey's house? Did you have a good time? What did you do? You know, ask them some questions, get them to tell you about things, and maybe even teach them something about what they're telling you. You know, they say, oh, I went to Susie's house and I got to ride a horse. It wasn't a big horse, it was just a little pony. And then you could say, oh, well, did you like that? You know, did you feel scared, or did you feel safe? And then you could tell a story about when you were little, maybe you rode a horse or a pony, or maybe you've never ridden a horse, and say, oh, I've never done that. Hopefully the parents had asked your permission for that, but you never know. So, yeah, so we want to be able to hear our children when they're speaking to us. We need to listen. We need to be able to communicate to them. We need to make them feel like we care enough to stop and listen and talk to them. Respect your child's body. So in this case, that means we're respecting them in a way that is not abusive. We are not spanking, hitting, dragging, pushing, any of that. If your child is resistant to physically going where they need to go, we need to stop, try and calm the situation down for everyone, and then slowly give some words that are going to help encourage them to do what you need them to do. Some circumstances may be emergency, immediate situation, and sometimes we have to pick our kids up in a loving way and try to direct them where they need to be. If they're about to run into the street and get hit by a car, you are going to react quickly so they don't get hurt. If they're in the store and they're screaming and yelling and they're over the top probably, for some maybe other reason. Maybe they didn't get their nap. Maybe there was a reward that they wanted that was not appropriate for them, and you said no. Whatever the situation is, if it's something that is immediate, you need to get them to a place where they can calm down. Then you may have to pick them up and take them out of the store. But explaining to them as much as you can to get them calmed down, that if you want your reward, you need to calm down, and you need to stop screaming and talk to mommy about this in a calm way. And a lot of times, the calmer you are, the calmer they are. So if you can keep yourself in control and try to think about being calm. And you know, this other little trick that I have seen kindergarten teachers do that is amazing, that if you lower your voice and you start to whisper and they want to hear what you're saying, they stop talking. And some teachers are very good at these kinds of skills with these little ones. So don't feel like you're a bad mom or bad parent because you had to pick up your child and take them out of the store. And you know what? Don't feel bad about leaving your basket full of groceries. You got to do what you got to do, you know. And maybe when they calm down, you'll be able to go back. But sometimes it's just the situation at that moment. But picking them up and taking them to the car in a gentle way, because as we all know, we've all seen parents out there who've had to do things like that, And as a parent, you know sometimes it's hard in those situations. And yet sometimes we judge each other. And so, if anything, trying to just be understanding to that parent when you see them and realize that they're doing the best they can. So, making sure that their needs are met before you get to the store are going to be helpful also, that they're not hungry, they're not tired, and you've picked appropriate time. And if it really is not a good thing to take them with you, pick a time when the other parent is there, or you have a support group of another parent who is willing to trade off with you to watch your children while you go to the store, you watch their kids while they go to the store. Those support groups are super important, and whether they're family or just our friends that are also parents. So, respect. Okay, we said that. Be nurturing and consistent in helping children learn appropriate behaviors. So it's, once again, consistency we talked about before. And nurturing, I haven't really talked about that word a lot, but nurturing is the goal of all of these things, to nurture and love our kids into being the best possible people they can be. And the consistency can be difficult, and yet it makes all the difference. If you have a plan, you have rules, you have a discipline, you have a consequence, and you're consistent throughout all of this, it's going to be easier on you and easier on your children and easier in your relationship with your spouse or other people who are watching your children. So it is all works together in a balance. Okay. If your child is going to do something that's going to hurt them, like stick their finger in the light socket, you're going to react and stop them before they hurt themselves, and you may not have time to think about how you're going to say that. And if you're dealing with a baby that's like 1.5 or younger, they're probably doing a lot of things still that could cause them to hurt themselves. And so there's going to be more reacting of getting them away from the situation that could hurt them, until they learn that light socket is definitely not something they play with. So I actually have a kitten that likes to bite through electric cords right now. So I'm having to watch him all the time. And that is kind of how it is with the baby. You gotta watch those guys, because they're still learning and they're exploring everything. And even when they get to be toddlers, they know more about what's right or wrong or what can hurt them. But they can still get into situations where you have to react, like running into the street. So be aware of their ages and the stages of their life, and then it helps you know how much they can do and how much you need to allow them to try to do, but also to keep them safe, which is another lesson that I'm going to go over on certain things we need to do as parents to keep our kids safe from hurting themselves. Okay, so this one has taken quite a bit of time, so I know that we did not get to too much of the praising. But I'm going to finish it, and then I might break this into 2 videos. So, because the praising part is, we all know that if we say, oh, you did such a nice job, setting the table for me, or, oh, I love the way you played with your brother today. You were so kind and understanding. So those are the types of praises that we want to do for them. And then you will hear them say that to other kids or to their siblings. Say, oh, thank you for giving me that toy back. I love the way that you shared your toys with me today. So those kinds of things that you do for them, they will do with their friends and also their siblings. And we have to be aware of how we praise. When we're praising, we're going to praise only. If we praise and say, I like the way that you picked up your toys, but you forgot a whole bunch of them over here. You need to go pick those up. That kind of like smashes the praise in the beginning down. So you want to say, oh, I love the way you picked up your toys. You did such a great job. And then later come back and say, oh, we forgot some. Shall we pick these up together? So that way you're giving them praise for the effort that they made, even if it wasn't perfect, because none of us are perfect. Now, you might have some kids that are pretty perfect at that. Like, it's important. Cleanliness, picking up is important for some kids. And they may not like the way other children do it because they're better at it and they get it all done. But if they learn to be able to say that to the child, like you did, and say, oh, I love the way you picked those toys up. Oh, I see some more over here. Let's go pick those up together. That would be a much more positive praising situation, right? Okay, so we have to be aware of the total, all the words we're using. Because if we're using praising words and then we're using condemning words, it doesn't work as well. Okay, so we have to really think it through. And telling kids you're going to help them with something is not taking away their responsibility. It's showing that we can all help each other. And it encourages them to help others in all situations. I lately have noticed that there are people in the world that will just throw things on the ground no matter where they are. And we see a lot of people out there volunteering to pick up garbage on the side of the roads and different things like that. And I have always taught my children, even if it's not yours, you can pick it up and put it in a garbage. You can help pick up the toys, even if they're not yours. You can help do a lot of things that aren't necessarily your responsibility or they're your mess, but you can help and make the world a better place, make your community a better place, make your school a better place. Show other kids how they can do it. Encourage other kids to help. So all of those things are going to make your child a better adult, and by your example. So if you see garbage out there, pick it up, put it in a garbage can right in front of your kids. See what they say about that. Okay, so that's where I'm going to end this, and I hope you all learn how to praise your children, praise all the people in your life around you, and to use your personal power in a positive way. Because we are amazing. People are amazing, and what we can do and change about how we do something is infinite. You can be exactly the person you want to be by just being aware and loving, positive, with your kids and with all the people around you. And like I said before, if there's something negative that's driving you down, get help to get rid of that. If it's an addiction, it won't go away. It'll be there waiting for you. But you can stop now, and you can become a better person than you have, a better parent, and your life will change for the good. And I know because I've lived it. Life gets better when you get better. Have a great night, and I'll be back to do another class.